Is that all right? Can I start now?
Yes.
Okie dokie. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I tried very hard to find a topic that wasn't related to coronavirus, because I think we're all bored of that topic. But in the end, I've chosen to speak about something that is related to the pandemic, but related to what comes next. What happens to the UK's education system when we get back to normal, or whatever the new normal is going to be after coronavirus? And I'm thinking here about teachers and how they are going to teach. Now, of course, most teachers are actually looking forward to being back in the classroom because they like the contact with the children and they like the interaction face to face with their pupils. So in that sense, they will be pleased to return to normality. But much of what was normal, in inverted commas, in education before the pandemic wasn't necessarily right. For example, I think that children are tested too much in the UK at school. 40% of teachers leave the profession within 5 years of starting. That's got to be a warning sign that something is wrong. 30% of young people are labelled as failures at the age of 16 when they take GCSEs, because that's where they fall on the bell curve that describes the GCSE results. And there are increasing mental health problems among school children. And above all, I think if we consider what the education system is for, quite a lot of people would feel that in the UK at the moment, we're basically teaching people to be second-class robots. Now, during the pandemic, and even now, because my children are not back at school yet, it's been a real challenge for teachers to deal with the situation. They've had to do several things at once. So they have had to teach some children in person, the children of key workers, for example, who are entitled to still go to school. They've been teaching vulnerable children in person. At the same time, they've had to lesson plan and teach everybody else online. And sometimes they've been asked to do that overnight with no experience and with no training. They've also been doing other things, providing emotional support, responding to emails from panicked parents who couldn't deal with the homeschooling situation. In some cases, teachers have been out delivering laptops to children or delivering materials. We have received whole timetables and printed worksheets for our children. So they've been dealing with those challenges. And then at the same time, there's been a kind of breaking of trust between the government and the frontline teachers. And by that I mean that the government's announcements about what was happening in schools and what was going to happen have been late, they have been contradictory. Sometimes the government has made U-turns. So it's been extremely difficult to manage all of that. But I think quite a few teachers would say that, if anything, this has actually created in them an increasing sense of empowerment, because the teachers want to take control of their destiny and they see this perhaps as an opportunity to achieve real change and to rethink priorities in education. And I want to give 3 examples of that, of what kinds of things can be rethought now and redesigned. First of all, we need to rethink the priorities in school in what we teach. And that means combining the head, the heart, and the hand. In other words, at school, we're teaching pupils knowledge, facts and figures, but also we need to be thinking about well-being a lot more than we have in the past, and problem solving and creativity. So it's not just academic success that's important. And this means that in September, when everybody goes back to school, the government should provide funding not just for one-to-one tuition, which it has promised to do to try to help some children catch up, but it also needs to provide funding for mental health services and enrichment activities. Secondly, we need smarter assessment of the schools. Ofsted needs to be overhauled. I mean, for the time being, of course, inspections have been suspended, league tables have been suspended, but when we go back in September, Ofsted needs to be more about sharing best practice between schools rather than a rather crude labeling of schools as being either failing or successful. And thirdly, I think this is an opportunity to consider how best we can use technology in schools. Obviously, the pandemic has been a real learning curve for teachers and for pupils, but everyone can see the potential advantages of using technology. There are some great collaborative tools to allow pupils to work together. You can exploit the flipped learning format, where the children access the materials in advance and absorb them and then ask the teacher questions. There are some great online tools for self-directed learning. But above all, I would say that in September, when the children go back to school, the one quality that will be needed in abundance, both from the schools and from the government, is imagination. We need to ask ourselves whether what we're doing is fit for purpose in the perhaps bleak post-COVID economic world. And we need to try to imagine what a great education looks like. And that might be very different from what it was 20 years ago or 50 years ago. So personally, when schools reopen in September, I hope that we don't go back to normal. Thank you.